Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of West Bend Licensing Board for February 7th at 6:25. Note that we do have a quorum, and we have 3 items on our agenda. The first being approval of the minutes, the regular Licensing Board minutes on January 17th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned and second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we have 2 agenda items for consideration. First being number 2, a second-hand article dealer for Cody R. Foote of the Vintage Shopper at 810 Bender Road in West Bend. And this recommendation is to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motion and second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we have number 3, an operator's license for Brianna M. Gomer. We're going to have a presentation by the chief. Welcome.
Good evening. Unfortunately, I come to you tonight with a recommendation for denial for Ms. Gamer. As you're well aware, the operating license in the city of West Bend allows operators to serve and sell and serve alcoholic beverages. It's also an expectation that they'll hold the customers responsible for their conduct and advance the laws. They're expected to work closely and cooperate with our department to ensure the safety of all patrons and citizens. We conducted a background investigation into arrests and convictions and found the following convictions of concern. On November 30th of 2019, a West Bend police officer stopped a vehicle for operating with no tail lamps illuminated. The officer identified the driver as Brianna Gamer. The officer noted Ms. Gamer was intoxicated. She failed field sobriety tests and was arrested for OWI. Ms. Gamer was convicted of that OWI on February 17th, 2020 in municipal court. On April 11th, 2020, at 11:43 p.m., deputies of the Adams County Sheriff's Office were dispatched to a residence in Adams, Wisconsin for a report of a domestic violence incident. Adams County deputies responded and spoke with Brianna Gamer and her boyfriend. The deputies determined Ms. Gamer and her boyfriend had ended their relationship earlier in the evening. However, Ms. Gamer was unable to leave as she had been drinking. An argument began, during which Ms. Gamer punched the male and broke several wall-hanging pictures. When the victim was trying to tore the house phone off the wall. Those 2 phones were never found. Ms. Gamer was arrested for battery, criminal damage to property, disorderly conduct, and intimidation of a victim felony. The investigating deputies mentioned Ms. Gamer had been drinking but did not obtain a PBT. On 3/10 of 21, Ms. Gamer was found guilty of criminal damage. The charges of battery and disorderly conduct were dismissed but read in, and the charge of intimidation of a victim was ordered an 18-month deferred prosecution or sentence. On July 11th of 2020, at 2:11 a.m., officers from the Wisconsin Dells Police Department were dispatched to a tavern in Wisconsin Dells for a report of a physical altercation. Investigating officers determined an altercation occurred inside the tavern between Brianna Gamer and the male from the April 11th, 2020 incident. When a staff member of the tavern attempted to intervene and remove Ms. Gamer from the business, Ms. Gamer scratched, bit, and kicked the staff member in the groin while being removed. The officers noted that Ms. Gamer was under bail restrictions for her April 11th, 2020 arrest and was to obtain absolute sobriety, to not be in a place that serves alcohol, and to not have contact with the male victim. Officers also noted Ms. Gamer appeared intoxicated, had slurred speech, and bloodshot eyes. Ms. Gamer provided a PBT sample of .184, was arrested for disorderly conduct, battery, and bail jumping. On June 21st, 2021, Ms. Gamer was found guilty in circuit court. She was sentenced to 18 months probation. As part of Ms. Gamer's rules of probation, she is not to consume or possess alcoholic beverages or be in any location whose primary purpose is the sale of alcohol, including but not limited to bars, taverns, and liquor stores, except her rule has an exception for the garden lounge only while she is on a work status. I did reach out to probation and parole since that seemed like an odd exception from a no drink to allow someone to work, and they have not gotten back to me on a comment. That was about 2 weeks ago. And I know they spoke to Captain Rollinger and advised that they were aware of that rule and were allowing Ms. Gamer to proceed with applying for the operator's license. Point out that an operator's license is citywide. It's not specific to garden lounge, so it would allow her to be a server at any of our licensed establishments. So based on the history of alcohol-related offense, we believe Brianna Gamer likely will not be able to detect and enforce the over-serving of individuals and ensure the safety of all patrons and citizens. Unfortunately, we recommend a denial of her request for an operating license.
Thanks, Chief. Is Ms. Gamer in the audience? If you'd like, you can come on up to the podium and let us know what's on your mind. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very sorry for the past incidents. I have been working very hard to maintain my sobriety. I go to the counseling, and I have not gotten in any more trouble since those incidents. I would like to be a great part of the community and continue to work on myself. I'm currently caring for my mother, who is ill with cancer, and I have nothing but respect for this town, and I do not plan to cause any issues further. I guess that's really all I have to say. I appreciate you guys' time.
Thanks, Brianna. Thanks for being here. I'll open it up to the licensing board if anybody has any questions. John?
I'm going to make a motion to deny. And the only reason I'm doing that is this is a very serious issue that you have here. And I've noticed now since you've been on probation, evidently we haven't noticed any issues at all. And that's great. Compliment you for following through. But I would suggest that you come back next year, and if we have no issues, I may change my mind, and I would be willing to give you a second chance. But right now, at this time, because we're so close to so many issues, I'm going to have to deny you. But keep up the good work. I appreciate that so far that you have been in good standings, and hopefully that we can come back, and then next year we definitely will give you a real serious look. Motion to deny.
Thank you. There's a second?
I second.
Sounds great. All those in favor of denial, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And as I let you know, this is just a recommendation that goes to the council level, so please stick around. It'll be kind of a long night, but hopefully you can stick around so that if anybody from the council would like to ask further questions that we can. So, thank you. And having no further business for the licensing board, I adjourn by the call of the chair. We're going to take things a little out of order tonight. We're going to move to the City of West Bend Common Council meeting. Note that we do have a quorum with Alderman Kennedy absent and excused, so please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right, so we are going to take things a little out of order, even at the council level as well. We'll take up item number 1, which is approval of the minutes, and then I would like to grab our closed session item number 20 and move that after approval of the minutes. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the regular common council meeting minutes of January 17th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Waddle and Allen. Any comments or corrections on that? All those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we'll move to our closed session item number 20, entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to state statute section 19.85 para 1G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. This is for the update on property tax litigation with various properties.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Model and Allen. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Butchlick.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Berquist.
Aye.
Alderman Kaler.
Aye.
Alderman Dolnick.
Aye.
Alderman Aaron's.
Aye.
Alderman Model.
Aye.
We're in closed session.
Thank you. So if everybody in the audience can just sit tight, and we'll come back in just a little bit. And we are back into open session for the Common Council, but I'm going to recess to Public Works. Take it away.
Good evening. I would like to call the Board of Public Works. I have 5 items on the agenda. Number 1, the approval of minutes of January 3rd, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any corrections? If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The agenda item number 2, approval of SWM Practices Maintenance Agreement, Quick Trip 1062 at Washington Street and Shanar Drive. Good evening, Max.
Good evening. Thank you. This item is our usual agreement that we have with property owners who develop their property and were granted a stormwater management permit. As part of the permit, the city enters into an agreement with the property owner in order to make sure that the improvements which functions are to manage the stormwater will be maintained properly and function as intended for the years to come. So this agreement is for the stormwater management practices at the Quick Trip number 1062 at Washington Street and Shanar Drive. And this is a requirement of our MS4 permit, and we recommend that the board and council approve this agreement so Quick Trip can maintain their property properly.
Second.
Any questions for Max? There are none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3, approval of SWM Practice Maintenance Agreement, Quick Trip 1082, Washington Street and 18th.
Thank you again. This is another agreement for another Quick Trip. It's similar to the one I just presented. It's for the Quick Trip at Washington Street and 18th Avenue. And again, we would recommend that the board and council approve this agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have Alderman Allen, Alderman Model. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4, award contract 2201, Fifth Avenue Reconstruction.
Thank you again. This item is to recommend award of contract 2201 for the reconstruction of Fifth Avenue from Hawthorne Drive to Decorah Road. So the specific work under this contract will include replacing sanitary sewer, water main, and also the storm sewer, where we're going to more than double the capacity of the storm sewer because of existing drainage and flooding problems in the area. We received bids for this contract on Friday, January 28. and we received 6 bids, which are summarized in your memo. We have reviewed all the bids, and we reviewed the qualifications of the low bidder, Vinton Construction Company. And based on previous work done in the city, we believe that this company is capable of performing the work under this contract. We would use previously budgeted PMP, water utility, and sewer utility funds for this project, and therefore we recommend that the board award this contract 2201, in the amount of $2,227,877.28 to Vinton Construction Company at the unit prices specified in their bid. And also, we recommend an allocation of a contingency fund for approximately 5.5% of the total bid, for a total allocation not to exceed $2,351,000 for the construction of the project. An award of contract form is attached in the event that the board and council approve.
Second.
Any questions for Max?
Yeah, I have,
Alderman Kaler? You had a-
Just wanted to comment, it's nice to see 6 competitive bids on one of our projects. We haven't seen a lot of that.
Thank you.
Alderman Allen?
yeah, I have, the pre-bid estimate is just on the bid amount that comes in, not on the bid plus the contingency. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So this actually came in below what we had estimated. Good.
Yes, lower.
Well, we had 3 bids that were lower, actually, so.
Yes, our estimate is right in the middle.
Well, then you won't get any of our contracts, Max. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? There are none. All those in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5, order for removal and replacement of sidewalks under contract 2201.
Thank you again. This item is for recommendation of, to approve an order for the removal and replacement of sidewalks for parcels along the work area of contract 2201 for the Fifth Avenue reconstruction. While we'll be reconstructing the road, we will be replacing some of the sidewalks. Sometimes we have to go in to install some laterals for sanitary water or even storm reconnections from downspouts or other lines coming from the properties. But we notice also damaged sidewalk that would need to be replaced because it's a hazard, for a trip hazard. And this order is identifying those slabs of sidewalk in front of 5 properties along the project area. So we would recommend the board approve the order to remove and replace those sidewalk slabs.
Motion to approve.
second.
Any questions regarding that for Max? Alderman Allen?
We're still going to be getting the normal annual sidewalk maintenance, like we have a whole slug. Are we going to get the whole slug we didn't get to last year plus another whole slug?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
It's coming up.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There are none. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Max. Being no further business before the Board of Public Works, I adjourn. Okay, I would like to call to order the Finance Committee. We have approval of minutes from the regular meeting, January 17, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any corrections? There are none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 on the agenda, a resolution authorizing the fire department for the sale of used fire truck number 923. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. How are you this evening?
Good.
I have before you a request to sell our 1999 E1 100-foot aerial ladder. That was the vehicle that was replaced by our 2021 100-foot tower from Pierce. We originally offered this item for sale in March. We had a initial offer or asking price of $75,000. Received no offers. Reduced it in June to $65,000. July we went down to $50,000. And in August, we went to $42,500. $42,500 was the first time we got any interest in it. We had 3 people interested in it, and the first 2 backed out, and the third one offered the $40,000. So this resolution is asking us permission to sell it, and then transfer $4,000 of that $40,000 to the broker who, for their license commission.
Okay.
It's
Have a
going to-
motion?
It's going to Canada.
Second.
Alderman Berquist, you had a motion?
Sure.
Okay, and Alderman Model. All right, any questions for Chief? There are none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Item number 3, resolution accepting a donation from Enchantment in the Park.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And Enchantment in the Park, I would like to thank them very much for that donation. Item number 4, a resolution to accept your urban wildlife damage abatement and control grant funds.
Can we go back to,
Okay, Alderman Allen, you have a question?
there's several items on that donation thing. Do we want to talk about that before we vote on it?
Okay, all right, I'll move back to the resolution.
Recitals.
All right, there was a there was a donation of $1,000 to the police department. There was a donation of $1,000 that was going to be deposited into revenue account for crime prevention donations. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Moving on to number 4, a resolution to accept urban wildlife damage abatement and control grant funds.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions for me?
Yeah, John.
Yep, go ahead.
Is this is for the deer abatement program, correct?
That is correct, right. We
Now,
are-
were you not saying that we ended last year with, I don't remember the numbers, like 100 deer, and this year we've got 200 again, or something like that? Those numbers aren't right, but it was a big
Right.
difference, right?
We had an increase in numbers that were spotted this year, and we had, Jay, correct me, we're up around 55 at this time right now.
Of currently removed from this year, yes. We're on our way to the prescribed amount, but
Okay,
they're actually working on that tonight.
Okay. right this minute, there's bullets flying through the air. Now, is this program working?
I would say, Alderman Berquist, I know you've mentioned numerous times that you've noticed that there is a difference.
There has been a difference, yes.
Well,
and
I mean, seeing or not seeing more or less deer, I mean, that sounds like the numbers are bearing out that it's not working.
Okay, I've got the gentleman that has all the answers for you. Good evening, Mike.
Yeah, I have all kinds of answers, yes. The abatement program that we're working through right now, it's a management tool to control the herd, the population, things like that. Will we have deer in West Bend after this? Yes. Is it a cure-all? No. But also part of the plan is not to remove all the deer in West Bend. That's never been one of the goals. What we wanted to do is reduce the population so it's a more manageable, more livable, more accommodating to our residents.
Is that happening?
It is. We've seen, again, the numbers can go up, the numbers can go down. We did the drone surveys, as John had mentioned. We do those in December. The surveys in December of 2021, the numbers increased compared to 2020 and 2020 or 2019. Does that mean our population's going up? Deer move, deer patterns change, things like that. I can tell you out at Lac La Rand Conservancy, the numbers are down, that they are so manageable at this point in time that we have not put sharpshooters on that property yet this year. They are doing a property nearby, but between the sharpshooters on that property and the local deer hunters that are, because it borders West Bend, those population numbers are down. And back in the past, you could walk Lac La Rand almost, not every day, but almost, and see deer. You don't see that anymore. Those numbers are down. Well, we always have deer versus car accidents in West Bend, yes, things like that. This is a management tool to control or manage the herd that we have. So, yep. And then for the resolution this evening, again, Jess put it together. It's a $5,000 grant, receiving that $5,000, and then applying for the next grant for this calendar year.
I think the grant's great. I'm glad that we got that. I just, if this program's not working,
And
mixed
Jess
feelings about
did an
it, so.
outstanding job with their grant because, for the DNR, the entire state, they budget $25,000 a year annually for the entire state. We received one of those $5,000 grants out of that $25,000. So that's pretty impressive right there.
Alderman
A
Taylor?
big increase, Mike.
Okay, please don't quote me on the numbers, but it was like 40 or 50 animals, something like that.
What area, though? Is it about a rural area, or why are we seeing an increase?
The drone surveys were Bicentennial Park over off 18th and Tamarack, Silverbrook Parkway, Regner, the county property off of Schmidt Road, and Lac Loran. It was those areas that were surveyed. Again, the numbers over at Lac Loran, they were down.
Right.
Some of the other ones, they were up. Again, when we did the drone surveys in December, we didn't have snow cover, things like that. It was just post-hunting season. There's hunting pressure around the city. Did we have higher numbers in the city because of some of those factors? There's so many variables. They're wild animals roaming. Their patterns can change, so.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Mike.
Yep, you bet.
All right, see, I told you Mike had the answer.
Yeah, he is the answer guy.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Hey,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Being no further business before the Finance Committee, I adjourn.
Thank you, Alderman Butchlick, and I will reconvene the Common Council meeting. We are on the consent agenda, and I'd like to pull out items 3 and 4, so if I could have a motion to consent the rest.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Allen. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and I'll have Alderman Butchlick take 3 and 4 for me.
Okay, item number 3, approval of SWM Practice Maintenance Agreement, Quick Trip 1062 at Washington Street and Shanart.
Second.
Any questions? Do I have a motion on the floor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4, approval of SWM Practice Maintenance Agreement, Quick Trip 1082, Washington Street and 18th Avenue.
Motion to approve.
second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, hold on.
Thanks so much, and then we'll move on to agenda items for consideration. Number 10, an operator's license for Brianna M. Gamer. The recommendation from the licensing board was to deny.
Motion to deny.
Thank you. It's been motioned second. Ms. Gamer is still in the audience. If anybody from the council would like to ask any questions, they definitely can. Or any other discussion?
I don't have a question, but I do want to back up what John was saying. And just some of these things were just too recent. I mean, we have been a forgiving council in the past, but just to get a little more time under your belt with sobriety before we can hand out a license like that again. So like John said, please come back next year. It sounds like you're doing great. Applaud your efforts.
Thanks, Alderman Model. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. There's some, I received a letter from her employer, and that's the reason for these questions. She currently has, as I understand it, a temporary bartending license. How do we go about granting a temporary bartending license?
Good question. Anybody have an answer?
Because she's got she's obviously in there, it's part of her agreement with the, not parole board, but the people that handled the probation.
Sure. I think Casey has an answer for us.
So she applied for a provisional license so that she can have her temporary license before receiving her actual license. That's good for the 60 days. If she does receive a denial, that gets as well denied right away.
Okay, so that's an
And
immediate
removed. Yes.
loss of ability to work. How much time does she have remaining on her provisional? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, that I don't have that in front of me. I can double
Okay.
check though if you'd like, but.
Yeah, there was, one of the other points that was brought up was the issue with the fact that all employers in the area are having difficulty finding employees, and so there was an appeal. Although I'll be honest, I personally am concerned with the seriousness of the offenses and how recent they were. I would tend to agree with Alderman Bushlick in terms of the seriousness. We need to, give it some time to think. But I was just confused with, she's currently employed doing this job and doesn't yet have a license, but that's been explained, so.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions? Then we do have a motion to deny on the floor. All those in favor of denial, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And Brianna, I'll just echo all the comments up here. Keep your head up. We'd love to see you here again soon. Thanks so much. And with that, we'll move to item number 11, discussion and action on implementing the compensation plan recommended by Mcgrath Consulting. We have Dr. Mcgrath here with Milena, who's going to give us a report.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for working on this.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everybody. Thank you for having us. I'm Dr. Victoria Mcgrath. I'm CEO of Mcgrath Human Resources Group. I've met most of you at one point in time last year. Just give you a brief overview of our company, then I'm going to turn it over to Milena, who was the lead consultant on this. Mcgrath Consulting was established in the year 2000, so in May of this year, we'll be celebrating our 22nd anniversary in business. It's hard to believe we've been along that long. We specialize in public sector consulting. We have the main company, which is Mcgrath Consulting Group, Inc. We do public safety consulting, police, fire, EMS, and dispatch. And then we broke off into a subsidiary corporation in 2012, Mcgrath Human Resources Group, because people thought we only did police, fire, and EMS, and dispatch. And we actually do look at compensation, human resources activities for the entire organization from the county level on down. So that's what we are going to talk today. I'm going to turn it over to Milena. Milena's background is in human resources as well. At one point in time, she worked in the private sector, but was then the HR director for a county here in Wisconsin. I just want to leave before I turn it over to Milena is this. We are now the third consultant in a series of compensation studies. I think at this point in time, you need to make some decisions. You were elected to provide services to your to your citizens and to your constituents. In order to do that, you need to purchase the talents and skills of individuals to do that, and that's your employees. Without them, you're not going to provide those services to your employees. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Milena, who will tell you what our process was and what our recommendations are. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Milena Halverson-Mays, and I am the consultant that spent the majority of the time working with the city on this particular project. And as Dr. Mcgrath indicated, my background is in human resources, a little more than 20 years in the chair in total, 15 of which has been in the public level, the public sector. The rest of that was in private. I have been with Mcgrath now for the past 8 years, working predominantly on compensation studies, not only in Wisconsin, but in other areas of the United States. What I want to do here this evening is go through the final report that you have in your agenda packet. The final report is a summation of our entire project from beginning to end. And we have in there recommendations, and those recommendations are to make some pretty substantial changes to the pay ranges for your positions here at the City of West Bend. But of course, I don't expect anyone to just take my word for it. The final report really is going to walk down the path of the process of our project, what our findings were, and how we derived at our recommendations. And so if you will bear with me here for the next 15 or 20 minutes, and that's so that I can walk through this process with you. The objectives of our study, and I'm not going to read this verbatim for you, the PowerPoint presentation has been made available to the city if you wish to have a copy of it after tonight's presentation, was to take a look at the city of West Bend's current compensation system, and to go out to the market to identify what the comparable organizations were paying for similar or like type positions. And in addition to that, to be doing an analysis of each of those positions so that we could make sure that we were structuring your classification process and placing positions within that new system in an equitable manner. We were also asked to take a look at some benefits, and that information is also in that final report, although I'm not necessarily going to touch upon that tonight. So after we collected all of that position information and that market data information, from that we collected that, we analyzed it, and we developed our recommendations, which is what you have here before you tonight. How did we go about doing that? The first thing we did was last fall. It's hard to believe. It's been a few months since we started this process. We met with your city administration, and we met with each of your department directors to gain an understanding of what programs and services are offered by the city. And we spent time talking about each individual position so that we understood what those position responsibilities were, so that when we went out to the market, we made sure that we were collecting comparable information. We also, from that, asked for many of your positions, all of your positions actually, to complete what's called a position questionnaire document. And that position questionnaire document gave us more information about what each of those positions are responsible to do, so that when we run that analysis, we're able to do an evaluation of what's happening within the department, but also what's happening across the total organization. Because there may be some positions here in the city that are they might have positions that are similar across different departments, or they might be dissimilar and they might have similar job titles, and that gave us an opportunity to really do a much, much deeper dive with that position information. After I met with all of the departments, Dr. Mcgrath, she met individually with all of the members here, and so we have that information, and we considered that information as well. We took a look at all of the data from the city, your policies, your job descriptions, all of the data, and that helped us really gain an understanding of where you are at as an employer. We're going to talk about that here a little bit later, how you fared against the market. And then the last thing we did was we collected a lot of compensation data. We collected information, at least 4 data points on each of our benchmarked positions from 28 different organizations throughout this particular region, so that we could get a real good understanding of where your market is and how you were doing against that. This is a list of the comparable organizations that was used. This is in the executive, or excuse me, the final report, and so I won't spend a lot of time on this, other than to say that this list was developed collaboratively with your department directors and your city administration. There was a lot of discussion about who is and who is not comparable. I asked all of your directors, who are you competing against? Who do you lose your human capital to? Where are you wanting to get them from? And who might also have similar programs and services? And so you might see one that's up there and you think, I wonder why it's up there. And that might simply be because they have a specialized system or a specialized program that we wanted to seek out that salary data. Just an overview then on your compensation history. You probably already know this, but this information is pretty meaningful to when I start bringing forward the market findings. As of right now, the current salary schedule that the city is working under has not actually been adjusted since 2013. That means that those minimum rates that we are showing, or those maximum rates, they've been in place now for several years. And the market shifts, the market changes, and so it becomes a little bit more it becomes a little bit more challenging in determining how an individual should be coming into your organization, because those ranges then are no longer being kept up against the comparable market. And so that's really important distinction when we start talking about our market findings. And as a result of that, out of necessity, the city has started to hire positions above the minimum. You will understand why here in a moment, and that was a very wise decision when you see how you're doing in comparisons against the market. The last part of history that is going to be meaningful is that the salary adjustments, they're occurring on an annual basis, and they are generally across the board, although there's some performance tied to that. But that's going to be an important distinction when we get to describing what the incumbents are actually earning against the market, and that they're not necessarily keeping up with the comparable market. So before I go into the first piece, which is, all right, well, you collected data from 28 different organizations. What exactly did you find? I'm going to put a couple of charts up on the screen for you to review. And when you look at them, what you're going to see is a bunch of percentages, okay? That percentage is called a comp ratio. That is a comparison ratio between the city of West Bend's salary against our analyzed average of all of those data points that we collected. Now, when we look at these charts, we want your numbers to be as close to 50% as possible, because 50% is considered average market, all right? But there is always going to be within the market some variation. We know that not everything is going to be an exact comparison, and the data that we collect today is going to be outdated by tomorrow, because we understand that data changes. And so there is, generally speaking, an accepted practice around that comp ratio, that if your comp ratio is between 40 and 60%, we would consider that market competitive. However, in the year 2020 and 2021, these have been some pretty dynamic years in terms of human capital. And so when we look at those comp ratios, we do take a closer look at the comp ratios of 40 to 44%, because even though they might still look on paper as market competitive, given what's happening with the human capital and what's happening with recruitment and retention across the United States right now, we are actually isolating that a little bit heavier to say, are they really competitive or not? And so when you look at my graphs, you'll see that I have isolated those particular areas. So let's take a look at how the city fared against those 28 different organizations. Overall, not surprising, because you have not moved your ranges since 2013. 91% of your entrance rates to the city are under the market, and that means that they have a comp ratio of 40% or less than 40%. You have 9% of your positions that have a market competitive higher rate, and 3% of those would be at risk of falling behind in the market. And this is why the city is now hiring above the minimums. It's out of necessity. The next thing we took a look at is your midpoint. And we compared your midpoint to the market, what is actually being compensated for these positions, to see, all right, well, if your entrance is not competitive, are the employees at least getting competitive wages by the midpoint? And this is our finding. 71% of your benchmark positions, again, are under the market. They have a comp ratio of 39% or less, and you do have about 29% that are aligned with the market, but 13 of which are in that at-risk category again. Now, there are some interesting dynamics here, because you have some varying ranges, and when I say that, the spread of those ranges will be between 32% and 67%, and because of that, we don't always know where your market or your true market point is with that, and because of that, then, we don't know how long it takes your employees to actually get to a market competitive rate. And that in of itself could be a little bit problematic as well. The last part that we look at when we're looking at just your ranges at this point is your maximum rates, okay? And what we found overall is that 27% of your positions will be at or above market for earnings potentials, okay? Which means that about a quarter of your positions, if they stay here at West Bend, they are going to be able to earn at least what your competition is earning, but only 25%, okay? The rest of your positions, if they stay at West Bend and they hit the maximum, they're not going to be able to earn as much as you're going to earn when you go elsewhere. And that's important to know for retention purposes, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. So those three graphs just tell us what's happening with your ranges, okay? Now we need to take a look at what's happening with your actual employees and where they are earning in terms of their actual salaries in comparisons to other employees in those other 28 organizations who are holding the same positions, okay? And that's what that is what this graph shows. We feel that this is a very, very accurate reflection of the current market because this is what the actual rates of pay are telling us. Overall, 62% of your positions, on average, have a comp ratio of less than 40%. You've got 38% that are aligned to the market, but you've got about 14% that are in that lower 40 to 44 comp ratio, okay? The one thing that you do need to consider when you're looking at this is the tenure of your organization and the frequency of salary adjustments. Because if we go back and I mentioned that you've got some pretty wide spreads, 67% is a pretty wide spread, and we don't exactly know, where you're bringing your individuals in that. If a person is new and just starting out, they haven't had a chance to progress through their range yet, which is why it could very well be that you've got the majority of your individuals who have a comp ratio that's what we would consider to be very low in the market, okay? So it's, there may be a lot of factors that play into the results here, one of which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, which is your employee demographics. We're going to talk about, all right, let's take a look at the tenure of your organization, and let's also talk about the turnover. So that is what our market findings were specifically for the city of West Bend. We also found a couple of other issues, some of which I've already talked about. We have varying spreads between your minimum and your maximum of your current ranges, although we also know that you're not necessarily hiring at that minimum anymore. But we don't know where your market rate is. So again, the employees aren't going to know what is a market competitive rate for me. There is also some compression going on in your organization because you do have some collective bargaining, and then you have everybody else who their salaries are set through a different process. That's very typical for us to see between union and non-union. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the processes. It is what it is in the state of Wisconsin. It's more of we need to be aware that compression does exist within the organization. And we also found some internal equity challenges where we had positions that might be similar in terms of responsibility, but they may not necessarily be paid at the same pay grade. So that's what's going on in the city of West Bend. Now let's take it a little bit more broad, and that is what's happening in the region and also within the nation for public sector employers. And the first thing that's happening is on a nationwide basis, there's a significant gap or decrease in the number of applications for public sector positions. And the last statistic that we have, it's been, I think about 2021 was the last time that this was updated. There's a 37% decline in employment in the public sector. The idea that I'm going to be a young adult and I'm going to find a position with my local city and I'm going to stay there for my career, those days are virtually gone now. Individuals are viewing public sector as more of a stepping stone into other opportunities. In addition to that, in the last few years, there's been a significant decline or significant turnover in government positions. And this is at the local level, excludes state and it excludes the school districts. 1 in 5 employees are leaving. They're leaving public sector altogether. Okay, and so that compounding on your gap of applications, the positions in government are becoming more complicated, more technical in nature, and that gap is certainly problematic. And so the city needs to understand that. So when we are providing you with recommendations, we want to make sure that your salary ranges are market competitive for your recruitment efforts and your retention opportunities. You have other factors here that are completely out of your control. You are in an area that's very close to Milwaukee. You have a lot of other opportunities around you. You have many other municipalities, some of which they're leading the market in terms of wages. And so there's a lot of option that's available to your applicants and your employees. And the other thing that you have going on is the Great Resignation of 2021 that everyone keeps talking about. There are a great number of individuals who just simply decided to leave the workforce. They decided to retire, or they determined that they are going to have single income households, and they've made changes to their life. And now all of a sudden, we just simply have less people to fill those positions. Okay, and so it's just a compounding issue. All right, let's take a look real quickly at demographics before we go into the recommendations. And this is an interesting chart. I would recommend that the city maintain this on an annual basis so that you can take a look at your trends. Overall, what you are going to see is the chart on the left is the percentage of employees by the age group. On the right-hand side is the average years of service in that particular age group. And you will see overall that the city's average years of service is 10.46 years of service. And the city should be applauded for this, because right now, nationwide, public sector tenure is somewhere hovering around 6.5 years. And so you are currently beating that trend, and congratulations. Now what we want you to do is we want you to be able to sustain that, okay? So when we look at your numbers, you will see that you've got a number of individuals who are age 55 and over that they are holding that 10-year number up, okay? And they are representing 23% of your workforce, so about a quarter of them. What's going to happen is they're going to retire, and then your 10-year number is going to start to decline. But you can expect that with 25% of those individuals at that age, they're WRS eligible, or pretty soon WRS eligible to retire, and they're going to go, and the city should be planning for that, okay? The other items that this chart is providing or tells us is what's happening on the far left-hand side of our charts, and that is the individuals who are under the age of 40, and I've coined them the mobile generation. You have 38% of your workforce here that are under the age of 39. They're not afraid to go get a job elsewhere. They don't necessarily have a commitment or a tie to the organization. They know what their value and their worth is, and they're going to go to the community next door if they are going to be paying significantly more than what their current employer is. If you look at then that 38% of that workforce, they have about 5 years or less service with the city. Okay, and that's why your tenure is going to continue to drop, is because they're not staying. The last thing that we have noticed here in 2021 especially is the Gen Xers, and that kind of a broad statement, but I'm going to just cover the age 40 to 49 category that makes up 29% of your workforce here. These are the individuals that probably have some really good experience. They've been in the workforce for quite a bit of time, and they're being called. They're being unsolicited called to say, you have a something in terms of your skill set that we would like, please come work for us. And it's happening where people are just they're getting picked. And so the city really should be looking at how they can be retaining their workforce. Now, granted, compensation is not everything. People do not just simply work for their employer for compensation. They work for other reasons as well, but we want to try to eliminate the compensation as a factor for individuals that might decide to leave. This is a chart that came right from the final report. It is the turnover here at the city, and if you take a look at your trend, although you had a pretty big number in 2016, and I do not know why, I did not go into the details of why. 2017 and 18 were pretty stable with real good percentages of under 10%. We like to see less than 10% turnover. But then after 2018, you can see that you have had a increase in your turnover, and that is very, very expensive to an organization. Turnover, you have recruitment costs, overtime costs, training costs, payout costs, and so turnover is an allocation of your resources to that, where instead you could be allocating them to your compensation system. And to take that a little bit further, because there certainly is, there may be a question of where is the turnover coming from, and this is not in the final report. I did this after the report was done. I took your 2021 losses. This is all of your positions that turned over citywide in 2021, and I broke it down into each respective department. And you will see that there are some departments there that have a pretty large percentage, and I'm going to, kind of pick on the library had a 27%, if my eyes are treating me correctly, 27% of, that was 27% of the city's total turnover. And as another example, IT was only 5%. But when you take a look at the department, okay, now let's take a look at the library. That's 58% of that department that turned over, but it's 100% of your IT department, okay? And so you can't always just look at necessarily, how much did one particular department make up of the total turnover for the year. There are times when you're going to have to take a look at what's happening within each respective department. And so for that reason, because your numbers are very varied in this chart, I really do compel the city to look at this as a citywide issue. What your turnover is. Don't be looking at specific departments, but be looking at it more holistically as what's happening within our organization and what can we try to correct organizational wide. All right. Before we go into the recommendations, I very quickly want to talk about compensation philosophy. This is something that Dr. Mcgrath talked with you about when she had an opportunity to meet with you last fall. Compensation philosophy really is that commitment from the organization of how you want to pay your employees. And an organization really has three options. You can be the leader of the market, and you can set the wages and hope that every employer, doesn't catch you, but you're actually leading the charge. You can meet the market, and you can be competitive and be in the mix and know that there are going to be some employers that are going to pay more than you, others that are going to pay less than you, and we want to try to be right in that middle. And that's where the majority of our employers feel that they can financially afford to be. And then there's others that they are going to follow the market. They're not going to be a trendsetter. They may not even hit average market. Okay, and those are the individual organizations then that tend to have that turnover cost, like what I talked about, and you're allocating dollars into turnover instead of into your compensation. So overall, when we took a look at compensation philosophy, we took a look at the market, your demographics, we came up with the following recommendations, and this is available in your final report. We established a range system structure based upon average market, okay? That means that there are going to be some employers that are going to pay more than West Bend, and there's going to be others that are going to pay less. You're not going to be the top paying organization. There are 17 pay grades, and we have established the market rate in each of those pay grades. That market rate is 15% into the range, and those ranges are a total of 35% from minimum to maximum. That means that there are some maximums that we have brought down, because remember, some of your spreads were upwards of 67%. We've brought it down. We feel that we've established your maximums at a realistic number, and we feel that is going to be an affordable number for the city. There are a couple of areas within your salary structure, because of the uniqueness of those positions and what's happening currently within the market. One is your utilities positions. Those are, right now the market is really incredibly tight. We do have some very specific recommendations on how to utilize the range for those positions so that the city can be market competitive. We left them in the range, although we do recommend that the city target that market rate a little bit more specifically for those positions. But we're going to talk about what that causes in a minute, which is compression. We're going to have some in-range compression that the organization will want to take a look at here in the near future. Our recommendations, we have placed every position on a pay grade that has been analyzed and developed. And in terms of individual employees then, well, that's the next step in this process, we placed all of the employees within their respective ranges, and if the employee was under the minimum, then our costing has put them up to that new minimum rate, okay? If any employee was already within the range, then our recommendation is to make sure that those employees receive a 3% salary adjustment. So overall, the implementation recommendation is to get every employee up to the minimum with at least a 3% salary adjustment for 2022. The cost on that is, we'll talk about that. Don't let me forget to talk about that. We'll come back to that. We do have some other recommendations. We've got some different title changes, and this is where we need to bring up here that we've got some compression in two very specific areas. The first one is with your public safety, all right? And the second one is going to be more or less in your utilities area, but there are also going to be, there are many of your employees that are going to be going to the minimum, all right? And that creates what we call in-range compression. When you have a range and we've suddenly shifted it, all of a sudden maybe some long-term employees are towards the bottom of that salary range. Okay, and that's what's called in-range compression. My recommendation is, because I did an initial costing and it is a pretty expensive price tag to fix all at once, is that the city look at that in increments on an annual basis to try to accelerate those individual employees through the range over a period of time. With the recommendations, then we also will have some policy recommendations in the report, and very briefly, you know, one of the things that we are very interested in having the city continue to do is maintain the system. We've expended some dollars to get it up to date, to get the employees in that range, and now we want you to be able to manage this going forward, and by being able to follow these recommendations, that will put the city in a good position. The first one is that on an annual basis, we want to make sure that those ranges are adjusted by an economic indicator of some sort. We call that a cost of living adjustment. So if you have, for example, and we're going to just pick a position that does not occur here at the city because I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, okay? Let's just say that you have a home health aide, okay? That home health aide right now may be worth $12 an hour to $15 an hour this year, but by next year it might be worth $12.50 an hour. And so we want you to be able to keep those ranges going to keep the market competitiveness of the ranges. In addition to that, the employees, they need to continue to have their annual adjustments. Okay? They need to be able to progress through the ranges that we've developed for them. And the third thing that might have to happen over a period of time for an exceptional situation is what we call a market adjustment. There may be times when there's what I call a blip in the market, and something is happening to a specific classification. Let's just take nurses, for example, because you don't have nurses here. And probably no surprise right now that the rates of nurses are gaining, and if you're not going to be doing a compensation study or a market update, you might determine that you have to make adjustments to a nurse's range. And that what we would call a market adjustment, where you have a defined purpose for moving a specific classification. But if you're going to do that, the purpose for doing that is to make sure that the position holds to the market. It's not a reason to move an individual employee to get them additional dollars. So this market adjustment is intended for classifications and to keep a specific job classification competitive. The last thing that we do recommend is that you do a process similar to this. It could be a little bit more mini, but similar to this at least every 3 to 5 years. That way, if you have had any types of adjustments in the market, you're able to catch them before they become problematic or challenging for the departments. Really quickly, and then we'll call it wrap up, because I believe that there are a number of employees in the audience tonight, and this one is probably going to be more important to them than it is to everybody here. But when very often we get a question of how is it that you determine how a position gets placed on the salary schedule, and that can be not an easy answer necessarily. And we tried to describe this in the report. We utilize 4 different indicators. We utilize the market, We utilize the position analysis, that position questionnaire that the employees completed. We take a look at some internal comparability factors, and we also then take into consideration compression. So the big takeaway on that is there are many, many different factors. There's not any one individual factor that goes into making your compensation system. So with that, I gave you a lot of information in a very small amount of time, and I appreciate your attention. Questions?
Thanks so much. Thank you, both of you, for your thorough work over the past couple months. I know we've all been anxious to see the report. So, yep, I'll open up to the council if anybody has any questions of our guests. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple. First one is, you mentioned, disappeared, mentioned possibly incrementing some of these raises over a period of time. Is that reflected in your report? Or is that not? Is there a way to do that?
The implementation to get all of the new salary ranges and to get all of the employees into those ranges, that is the first round of implementation. The cost of that is, roughly about between $535,000 to $560,000. The rest of what I'm talking about is listed in the report, and that is discussing the compression. And the compression only. Once you have those ranges set, what you're going to have is you have many tenured individuals in the lower part of the range, and they should be accelerating that through the range a little bit faster so that they can get to a little bit closer to where they should be in the range, and that can be done over an incremental period of time. I think in the report I put about maybe 1% or 1.5% additional each year for those individuals.
Okay. The other one was when you look at the individual positions, let's go with your nurse position. If your analysis looked at nurses that all have a BSN and 10 years experience, is that reflected that, let's say, our nurse only has just a associate degree in 3 years? Is that somehow reflected in here, or we just, if that's your position, and that's where you go?
So, if you want to come up, you certainly can. When we go back to the first meetings that we had with your department directors, we talked about, we'll talk about like the nurse example specifically. We would be asking them, is an associate's required or is a bachelor's required? So that when we went out to the survey, then we would identify, are we collecting associate's data or are we collecting bachelor's data? And so in terms of that type of special education or licensing credentialing that comes with a specific position, yes, then we are considering that with our market collection and then our recommendations. In terms of the, whether they have 4 years or 10 years, we're not looking at that, because what's happening is everyone gets placed on the salary schedule with the same methodology. Everyone gets treated the same. We take what their current hourly rate of pay is or their current salary, and we place them on the salary schedule. And if they're under the minimum, we got to get them up into the new range. And if they're already within the range, they just simply get the percentage that we've recommended. It would be then up to the organization to take a look at, over a sustained period of time, whether that 4-year employee is placed properly and with the in-range compression issue. We're not addressing that right now for this implementation. Is there anything else to add to that?
I think to add to that, we kind of sort of look at years of service when we look at the external market data, because when we get that external market data, we are doing a statistical analysis with it. So we are eliminating any highs or lows. So we would be eliminating folks that might have a longer tenure and therefore their salaries are higher, or newer tenured folks that they're lower and they're going to be eliminated out of that average. So are we actually looking, is this 5 years or 10 years? No, but we're making sure that we have a tight frame around that. So usually 1 or 2 standard deviations above or below the average are being eliminated. My famous saying, and I think I said it to some of you, is that when we do compensation studies, employees want us to make sure that we have all the high-paying municipalities. Elected officials want to make sure we have all the low-paying municipalities, and we don't make either one of you happy, because we're going to eliminate those and we're going to have a tight frame in the middle. But compression in range, once you get folks in there, is really very problematic. It's difficult for the employees. I've been here for 9 years, and what do you mean I'm only at the bottom of the salary range? We totally understand that. And that's something you really do need to work on. For example, right now I'm working with 2 counties, just finished one here in Wisconsin, I'm starting another one, where we've built these wonderful salary ranges and you can't use them, because you have all of your current employees at the lower end of that salary range. And so I have a great competitive salary range, but I'm not going to bring somebody in from the external market higher than somebody who's already been here. And so both of those organizations have kind of taken a, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off approach, and have done an analysis and said, okay, how much money do we need to have in order to shift those people to where they should be reasonably within the range, and then free up those ranges so that we can hire competitively. Obviously, you cannot do that all in the first year. The price tag just to get people on the schedule is pretty hefty. And you're going to take a look at it and do it again in a couple of years. To give you an example, I'm working with a library right now in Kansas, much smaller organization. The cost of their implementation is $169,000. We then said, okay, let's place everybody on the step. They have a step system. Let's place them on the step closest to their years in position. That $169,000 went up to $988,000. So there's just no way you can place folks, as much as employees don't like it, there's no way you can place folks within that range all at once. And I think there's a $500,000 some price tag to put them where they should be, another $500,000 plus price tag to put them where they should be within the range. But that's something you do need to tackle in the next coming years. You know, if anybody has X amount of years of experience and they're still not at the market rate, then they should be given extra percentage so you can clear those lanes out and take those years of service into consideration.
All right, just a couple closing things here. You said we've got the 10.46 years of average service, which is great, but then we have a 17.2% turnover rate, which is kind of contradictory, means we're probably losing our newer employees. And the majority of our turnover is within a couple departments. However, I agree this compensation needs to be done, it needs to be implemented, but I don't think the implementation of this compensation plan is going to eliminate our turnover problem. I think there's other issues here that we as a council have to look at and figure out. That is my thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, last one. There's several recommendations in here besides compensation. Are we voting on strictly the compensation plan? There's holiday things in here, there's vacation in here, there's sick time. Is this an overall, we're adopting all of this, or are we adopting just the compensation plan? Because there's much more to this.
Do you?
I can attempt to respond to that. There are a lot of policy items in here and recommendations that are long-term, and Milena and Dr. Mcgrath just both mentioned one of them in regards to in-range compression for our long-tenured employees. That is a recommendation that cannot be funded with the adoption of tonight's and the amount of money that we have available in 2022. So I'm hopeful that the motion adoption of this document means the compensation portion that you have for 2022 within the packet as well. Again, my recommendation is backdating it to 1/1 of 2022 so that the employees receive the full value of this year, and that, you know, the rest of it is administration works on over the next X amount of years. I don't think there's any magic.
All of the vacation stuff, the PTO, the vacation, that's all
of those
a separate issue.
Yep, all of those changes would have to come back for council for a policy amendment.
While we're on you, Jay, do you mind, can you break down, we have the implementation costs that was in the summary provided to us. Can you break down what that actually comes to in dollars and cents and where we're getting that money from?
Sure. The proposal that you have before you is $554,000. It's a tad different number once we took off the increases for the positions that are currently vacant and then added in a position that we had neglected to a vacant position that we had neglected to include with the initial plan that you saw. So that number again is $554,186. The amount that we budgeted for is $451,000. But if you recall, we budgeted for $451,000 and then put some additional monies into contingency. We also, fortunate or otherwise, the vacant positions that we currently have, and I sent you guys that document on Friday, that those 2 months, and it's conservatively 2 months of vacant positions, we're not likely to have all of those, be able to be in a position where we're having all of those positions filled by 3/1 of 2022, March 1st. So I asked Michelle to do the costing on only 2 months of vacant positions, and that came to just over $90,000, in addition to another $9,000 of, again, not granting those salary increases to vacant positions. So hopefully that all makes some sense. The bottom line is you have enough money in 2022's budget to afford this plan that's before you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know Alderman Allen's been waiting.
Motion to accept the compensation portion of the plan effective January 1st, 2022, and to take for action further study on all the other recommendations in the plan.
Second with a few things to say.
Thank you, Alderman Allen and Model. Take it away. You have a comment?
Well, I guess first of all, super intelligent study, and I you know that already, but I also appreciate that's what you said in the beginning about us being elected officials, and we are elected to provide services to the city. We're not necessarily elected to save taxpayer dollars at all possible costs. It just doesn't make sense. But when I first was approached by Jay about this compensation plan, I got all giddy, and I thought everyone else would be all giddy, But I started, I was very supportive of the city workers very early on in this process, and I think because of that, I got contacted by a lot of folks, and in a lot of cases, it wasn't folks contacting me based on themselves. They were contacting me on behalf of their superior, which I thought was really interesting. They said, "Oh, my, so and so has been here for blah blah blah, and what they're proposing to pay her or him is not anywhere near what they deserve," and blah blah blah. I thought that was incredibly interesting. But I think this is really a long time coming. I've been embarrassed since I found out that we are one of the lower paid municipalities in the county. I don't see anything wrong with us being, leading the way and being the highest paid municipality in the county. There's nothing wrong with that to me. But I guess that's it. I definitely support us passing this compensation stuff.
Thank you. Alderman Dolick?
Also, I'd like to also compliment Dr. Mcgrath and Melania. Melania.
Common spelling, yeah.
This study, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. This study came at this shortly after we had another study, and this study was just far superior. I mean, this is really good work, and it lays out all the facts that we need in case people yell at us, which they will. I disagree with Alderman Kaler in one regard. I don't know what information you have, and you don't want to share it here as to why people are leaving here, but without getting into specifics, there are several on the chart of the 11 open positions that I know left here because they got more pay going somewhere else. So I think that our compensation plan is responsible for turnover. I anecdotally have heard that there are city employees who have been waiting for this before they decide to make a move, because that's how important this is. So I think this has been an important factor in our retention and recruitment of employees.
Thank you. Anything else? Alderman Butchlick?
Yeah, I echo those comments of Alderman Dalnick and Alderman Model. A fantastic report. I never anticipated what was going to be coming across until I went through it, and I just want to compliment you. And And also, I want to compliment every one of the employees for sticking and hanging out with this. I mean, we could have had this taken care of a lot sooner, but we wanted to make sure we were on the right path, and you definitely showed us we're going on the wrong path, and I am happy to be able to approve this because it's a long time coming. You've been sitting there waiting for this, and compliment you for being patient with us. So I am very happy to see this thing going through.
Thank you. Alderman Allen again?
Yeah, I also want to thank you for the work you've done on the report. It's outstanding. Certainly, I had already come to some of these conclusions, but you fleshed it out to a really extreme extent. I do have one question. When you did the FLSA exemption, how many employees moved from exempt to non-exempt and vice versa?
I believe that there were 4 that moved to exempt status.
Okay. I'm good.
Sounds good. Anybody else that we haven't heard from quite yet? Yep.
I want to just commend you too. That's a great study. I know that my original position wasn't supported real much, but I think in the end, we are all now on the same page. We need to, us and whoever comes and sits in our seats after us, need to follow this, the recommendations, and make sure that the employees are compensated, fairly.
Thank you.
And incidentally, I hope we learned something from this and we don't drag our feet with the fire study. And it is worth pointing out, and I know that Jay won't do this himself, but this is within a few $1,000s of the thing you guys came up with. This is no reflection on you guys, but these guys had a study that came out about a month before you started on yours, or 2 months before you started on yours, and it was pretty spot on. So hopefully we start trusting our administration a little bit too.
As you should.
Mm-hmm.
The last holdout before I go. You want to go, Brett?
Sure, last but not least. I guess I'll reiterate the fact of what you've heard here, that thank you very much for providing the information. We could have done this on our own if we wanted to, but then we would have faced some backlash for that too. So you realize the fact, your opening statement about us being elected officials, we answer to a different crowd, but yet we don't. We have to answer to these employees just as much as we have to answer to our constituents out in the street. So the fact that you gave us the information, we thank you for that. And hopefully we can take this information and use it wisely and continue to move forward with the compensation plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I will also thank you. I don't know if we've given enough accolades tonight, but thank you very much. It's been great getting to work with you guys over the past couple months and learn more about your process and the background that you guys add to all this. It's been wonderful. I'll just add that, we as a council, we're, charged to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. And I think this study proves that we have done just that. So thank you to our staff for your patience. I know it wasn't easy to wait over the last couple months, but know that it was important for us as a council in order for us to move forward with a positive decision. So 3 highlights I just want to point out that, 1, it's important to pay our people, and I'll just leave it at that. We need to remain competitive in the job market, and we know that. And then, of course, I'll point to the cost. It costs more to the city to be constantly churning employees than it does, and training employees, than it is just to keep our gosh darn employees in the first place. So, and I get it. I've heard some of the criticism. I know it's easy to nitpick about specific positions, but this plan allows us to do a reset, do a correction, get our actuals to where they need to be, and overall recruit to retain our solid employees moving forward. So. Thanks so much. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you to those in the audience for being patient with us. And with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the comp plan as presented, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And with that, it passes. You're all welcome to stay. We have more exciting items we're talking about, but
We appreciate it.
thanks for coming out, guys. And we'll give a little lull here so we can let the crowd head out. Not yet. All right. And with that, we'll take up number 12, an update regarding the West Bend Fire Department analysis report. We'll have that by Alderman Kaler.
Thank you, Chris. Fire Department meeting, analysis meeting was held on 1/19. And, boy, I forgot, I don't even know what my notes are here. Wrong page. All right, anyhow. Structure meeting was on 1/19. We discussed the findings in the 24-page document. We went through organization, response times, inspections, which, by the way, there are 3,200 total inspections done by the fire department each year. We discussed revenue, and we went on to conclusions. The quarterly reports by the chief are already implemented and planned. He will be presenting to the council a minimum of 4 times a year. Structure, the fire department is currently analyzing that, as well as this committee, and that is yet to be determined. There are some other factors that will play into how that comes about. The risk assessment study that was recommended will be done in the fourth quarter of 2022. That is underway. EMS cost analysis has already been completed. That will be presented to council, I believe, at the next meeting or two. They plan to bring that forward. So some of those have been done. Analyzation of fees. That is also coming soon. I believe that is completed and will be coming before council soon for approval. The remainder of the items on the report are yet to be discussed. We are going to develop a 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan for both staff and facilities once we analyze all of the information further. The fire department has also submitted for a SAFER grant on February 4th, which would cover the costs of 9 firefighters. Being that as a grant, they needed an answer on that immediately, so the committee moved forward, giving them approval to apply for that. That is a total of $2.8 million, so we'll see how that plays out. They have also, using leftover salaries and overtime budget from last year, in the process of hiring a part-time fire inspector to assist with some of our inspections. Our next meeting is March 7th.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions for Alderman Kaler?
Couple questions.
Yep.
The grant being written to bring on 9 more firefighters, does that mean that we can't bring on 15 and pay for the other 6 ourselves? Or does that pigeonhole us to just 9?
There's no
limit. This is just the grant.
I'm just making sure the grant
that
doesn't.
was a recommendation
word
from the
that.
fire
That
chief.
was a recommendation.
for
We haven't
staffing.
even approved the hiring of 9, much less 15.
I
This is
understand
all-
that. I'm just asking if we're limited to 9 by the grant.
No, we are not.
Thank you.
Do it, expand, chief. How the grant works. It will be coming back before us for acceptance as well.
Exactly. It has to be approved by this body if we would accept it. It's just the minimum number that the grant would pay for. The grant pays for 3 years of a firefighter.
Sure.
And then you can add as many as you want.
Okay.
You cannot go
That's
less
all-
than.
That was the question.
Yep,
Yeah.
you cannot go less than 9, though.
Perfect.
Sounds good. You have anything else?
And yes, and have we started working on verbiage for a referendum yet?
Where are you coming up with referendum?
Just a question, yes or no?
Not yet.
No.
No, okay.
Just that
thank
one
you.
meeting.
Comes out of the blue.
Oh,
That's
man.
where we're heading, so.
Do you have a question?
No, I'll save it for the next item.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? All right. So then we have number 13, a request by Alderman Allen to create a committee to review the fire department analysis report.
Yeah, when the fire department survey was put in place when we agreed to fund that as a council, so that the council would receive the information, could make decisions about the future of the fire department. When the results came back, the mayor created a committee on his own of 2 aldermen. At the request of one of the aldermen, they added a member of the union to represent the union, and then the remainder of the members were fire department staff and the mayor. I would like to propose that we disband that committee and create a committee of the whole. Committee of the whole is all members of the common council would be on the committee. You could attend all of the meetings. You could participate at all of the meetings. They would be held under the open meetings law, so they would be noticed and they would go forward on that basis. The first meeting of the committee the mayor put together was held without notice. And two of the council members attended the meeting, which forced it into a quorum situation. And it would have been an unnoticed meeting with a quorum. And so the first meeting of the ad hoc fire committee, or whatever you want to call it, didn't happen. And yet, when the second meeting came on, the mayor brought the meeting to order and said, well, if you're just here watching this meeting, I don't want you participating. Just sit back and observe. So the people he didn't invite to the meeting weren't allowed to participate. I think that's a mistake, because it's the role of the council to do that, not this ad hoc committee. So my proposal is to create a committee of the whole so that all of the councilmen can participate in this process, and the meetings can be properly noticed and held in a manner that the public can observe. And that's my motion.
I agree. If that was a motion, then I
Yes.
second.
Thank you. Ian, do you mind just covering some of the parliamentary procedure accusations, I guess?
So the mayor is permitted to form a committee to advise him. So there was no issues with forming the ad hoc committee. And if it is a committee formed by the mayor, well, as you saw, we did, the meeting, the first meeting was stopped because there were quorum issues.
Mhm.
Second meeting was noticed. At that point, it is a meeting being run by the mayor. I don't think there was anything out of line with saying attendees don't get to participate. That is the role of the chair. So I don't think there was any impropriety in the creation of the ad hoc committee or in the way the meetings were run, just for clarities.
Yeah, and I the mayor can back me up on this, or anybody. I played by the rules. I didn't participate. However, I had things that I would have liked to have participated on during that meeting. And when the mayor called the first meeting that was eventually a non-meeting to order, and the second meeting, it was the purpose of the committee is to advise the council. It's not to advise, he didn't say it was to advise the mayor, it was to advise the council. And so by that statement, he's already said, I am taking and advising the council. I think that needs to be, and the reason I made the motion and it was seconded was to create a committee of the whole so that the entire council could in fact participate.
Got it. Alderman Kelly?
First of all, did I not advise the council tonight? None of this is secret. The mayor forms committees all of the time. So do we now disband all of his committees because you didn't get to participate? I'm sorry, it's open to the public. Anybody can attend. Speaking is limited to those that are on the committee like it is with any other meeting. The meeting was noticed. I'm not sure what you're trying to get at here. I mean, if your desire is to be on this committee so damn bad, well, I'll sure as heck give up my seat if that's what you want. I mean, not a big deal to me. If you don't trust the committees put together, then maybe you have other issues.
I don't know if it's necessarily a matter of trust. I think it's that there could be, I think each one of us on this council is a stakeholder in this. I know I am specifically, and I can tell you why, but others probably can also. It's just a really important issue, and it's a lot of freaking money we're talking about spending. So to have it limited to just one or two aldermen or one or two stakeholders in the community, I think this particular situation is different than just other random committees that the mayor may have put together. I'm worried about Station 2. I want to be able to express that in a committee meeting. If we're all in that committee, then we can all express ourselves. I think
This will all come before council. You'll have your chance. Nothing will be done without council approval.
Well,
You'll
yeah,
have
but
your
by the time
chance.
it comes to council for approval, all the decisions have been made. Come on, Randy, please.
All the decisions have been made. Do you vote?
I'm going to let Alderman Dolek talk here. He's been being patient.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yep. Go ahead.
I'm concerned about Station 2 also.
Right.
But I have absolutely no doubt that it will be fully discussed at a common council meeting before anything can be done. And to have a committee of the whole, to have potentially 8 people trying to wrangle this broad issue about the fire department study and everything that's under it, I think it's unwieldy. I mean, look how long we've been here tonight just on the compensation study and some of the other minor issues. And no, everybody up here is willing to spend a lot of time, but on the other hand, it creates, I think it, as I say, it makes it unwieldy to have a committee of the whole for something like this, and I don't think it's necessary. I don't understand decisions being made ahead of time. No, it's the council that will make these decisions. We can all read, we all read this thing, we all read the budget every year. So I think we're all capable of looking at the final product that the committee provides us.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then I'll call for a vote. So a vote in favor would be to, you added disbanding, correct?
Basically disband the committee as it stands now and create a committee of the whole that would allow all the aldermen to attend or not attend, but it would allow them to actually participate during the process.
For clarity, I do not believe council can disband an advisory committee to the mayor.
To the mayor, no.
Correct. You could have simultaneously 2 committees unless the mayor is willing to allow this to be the will of the body.
Just adding the option to participate to 6 aldermen is all we're doing.
So that's, if you're in favor, no is not. So, I'll make this a roll call vote, just that'd be easier, if that's okay.
Alderman Bushlick?
No.
You said nay?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Berquist?
Nay.
Alderman Kaler?
No.
Alderman Dolnick?
No.
Alderman Aaron's?
Nay.
Alderman Model?
Yay.
Five to 2, it's nay.
Thank you.
Fails.
But we look forward to continually giving updates. And Randy, I'm going to have you do it every time. Lucky you. No. With that, we'll move to item number 14, amending Subchapter 2, Floodplain Zoning of the Zoning Code to amend regulations for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and flood insurance study firm, and adopt all associated flood insurance maps for the city of West Bend. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Tonight, I'm asking the council to approve an ordinance to amend our Subchapter 2 for floodplain. We're required by the DNR and Fema to update the code to meet their requirements for the FIS studies and the firm maps. So the resolution tonight is to approve that, or I should say the ordinance. We have been in contact with the DNR, and we've been making some minor tweaks on things for language. So we just asked the council to approve our ordinance for the passage of this.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I think that was Model and Kaler. Any comments or questions for Jim? Hearing none. All those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
All right, thank you.
And move on to reports. First, number 15, a report by Alderman Berquist regarding the library board meeting.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Take it away.
Cool. The last meeting of the library board was held on January 18th. After approving the consent agenda, we got into the financial reports. Of note were several donations to the library that will be used for children's materials. There were no public comments. The library director briefed us on the Edelweiss State of the Collection report. We were rated on things like freshness of material, relevance, hit rates, and turnover. Our ratings varied from 2.5 to 3.7 on a 1 to 5 scale. Despite the fact that the numbers appeared low, we were told that this was just a 1-month report and that the goal is obviously to get to 5. We were shown how the people counter equipment at the library gathers information, and we can see that visually when people are coming into and leaving the library, which can in turn help with staffing considerations. It also allows us to separate counts from those going to the library and those going to the rec center in the basement or downstairs. Staff reports from youth services added that we had 9 story walks in 2021 with about 25 to 30 youth attending each story walk. Additionally, the 2022 winter reading program began on January 17th. The Access Services Librarian provided some statistics for January, that it being 32,361 checkouts at the library, which was outstanding. 147 new library cards were issued. 4,984 items were borrowed from other libraries, and we lent out 4,442 of our own to other libraries. One of the special projects of the Access Services is to move the patron hold area to a new location on the first floor across from the checkout stations. This allowed for greater patron privacy and more checkout options. The board president reminded us that Steve had been with us for a year. Congratulations, Steve. I'm sure he's happy. And there was no other new business, but wait, I've just been given some information that the West Bend High School student art exhibition begins on the 9th of February and runs through the 28th. Gallery night is on the 9th at 6:30. Come visit the library and see art from talented local artists in the high school age. And there is a 2 to 11 category for those outside the high school. So our next meeting is scheduled for February 15th at the library.
And I'll add to your report, Brett, that I'm aware of a couple vacancies that we're going to have on the library board come April. So if anybody in the public would like to apply for those positions, visit the mayor's webpage. Down at the bottom, there's an application for boards and commissions, and we'd love to see your interest. So, thank you. And next, 16, a report by Alderman Dolnick, or a model regarding the Plan Commission meeting. Who's taking it today? Okay.
So tonight we had voted on the floodplain zoning map. That first was at the Plan Commission. Tremendous controversy. We discussed that for hours. Not really. But some exciting news. The car wash that is west of Pizza Hut is changing hands, and there's a proposal to bring it down and rebuild a new car wash. What did I say?
You said west, it's east. And it's Pizza Ranch, not Pizza Hut.
Yeah, yeah, Pizza Ranch, I'm sorry. Yeah. The car wash west of Pizza Ranch is proposed to be raised and reconstructed, and the rendition looked actually very nice. We discussed it at length because there were some questions about traffic flow, but we think it'll be okay. And then the other interesting thing is that the mini golf course on Paradise Drive, west of River Road, has also changed hands, and they're going to be doing a lot of upgrades there. Driving range, batting cage, mini golf will continue. They are going to be selling Christmas trees. They've asked for a conditional use permit for that for next Christmas, as well as obtaining a license to sell alcoholic beverages. So that'll be interesting.
Terrific. Any questions for Alderman Dolnick? And then we're on to 17, report by Alderman Allen regarding the downtown bid board.
Bid board meeting was on February 1st, February Fool's Day. We we talked about our financial report, which was pretty much no activity because it was the first financial report of the year. No controversy there. Then we launched into talking about street cleaning and trash. And one of the takeaways was that the Downtown Business Association would like to explore changes to trash collection so that they could buy trash collection services from the city. And also, would there be they want to explore whether there could be a process by which permits to the city yard could be got by the businesses downtown. Then there were reports from the Bid Transportation Group, which reported on the proposed changes to the Main Street. We got an initial take on that. We're going to get another one. I believe it's in the morning. And then we had a report by the Bid Facade Grant Committee, of which I'm the chairman, because I guess I didn't duck quick enough. But the Bid Facade Grant Committee presented the plans and proposals, and then there'll be at the next meeting of the bid board, they'll be adopting some rules around the actual granting. And for those that haven't heard of it, the bid facade grant process, which you can find on the city's website, allows businesses to apply for matching grants from the city up to a planned total of $15,000. We're not obligated to allocate all of that, but we can't go beyond that. So we have a possible pool of $15,000. It's a matching grant, and it's to address improvements to facades of buildings in downtown. And also, the one thing of interest is that we are giving extra consideration to the backs of the buildings that front the Milwaukee River. So, any questions?
All right.
Cool.
Thank you. Then move on to a report by either Alderman Allen or Alderman Ahrens regarding the Tourism Commission. Are you going to take this one?
I do have this.
All right, go ahead.
The Tourism Commission met on January 18th, and started out by introducing Guy Fox as a new member, and he is the hotel industry representative. We had the recipients of the 2021 grants. They shared their presentations, and they included the City of West Bend, the Historic West Bend Theater, the Museum of Wisconsin Art, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Then we had 6 organizations submit applications for 2022 spring summer grants, and their request totaled $49,000, and we only had $20,000 in grants to award. But we were able to grant a little bit to everybody, and those grants are as follows. $8,000 to the Museum of Wisconsin Art for their Art and Chalk Fest. That's in August. $6,000 to the West Bend Friends of Parks and Recreation for Regner Fest, July 15th and 16th. $4,000 to Habitat for Humanity, Washington and Dodge Counties for the West Bend German Fest, end of August. $1,000 to Casa Guadalupe Education Center for the Festa Latina event on May 21st. $500 each to the West Bend Early Risers Kiwanis for their Duck Derby on July 4th, and then Roots and Branches for the Gardens of West Bend for their event July 16th and 17th. And then Jess had let us know that West Bend received grant funds in the amount of $95,000 and some change for the Destination Marketing Organization Grant Program by the state of Wisconsin through the American Rescue Plan funds to promote the city of West Bend as a destination for bicycling, outdoor recreation, and downtown exploration, which is very exciting. And one thing I learned, which is kind of a cool thing for us West Benders, I learned that West Bend is the #1 followed city on West Bend or on Facebook, and we just surpassed 21,000 followers. Is that right, Jess? Yeah. And we meet next March 8th at 5:30 is the next meeting.
Awesome. Any questions for Alderman Ahrens? And then number 19, a report by Alderman Kaler regarding the Park and Rec Commission meeting.
Park and Rec Commission met. Park and Rec Commission met on January 27th. We had quite a few items on the agenda. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the West Bend Baseball Association, standard procedure for the Carl Close Field. Beach House, all alternates have been awarded for a total of $1,662,877. That does not include the parking lot nor the drive around yet, but we are working on the final phases of that. Riverwalk West, we had 3 bidders attend the pre-construction meeting and looking forward to those bids coming in. Winter warm-up was very well attended, thanks to all the Parks and Rec staff that helped set up stands and ice sculptures and all the other things you did downtown. It was much appreciated. They are currently working on their summer activity book. The snowshoe program has been going very well at LLC. The sled shed is awesome. I visited myself yesterday. For anybody who doesn't know, it's located at Royal Oaks Park. There's a shed with probably a dozen to 15 sleds. Anybody can go out and use them. It's a pretty good size hill. I wiped out twice, but it's a neat little deal that anybody can go out and enjoy it. You don't have to have a sled, just go out and have fun. The Owl Prowl, scheduled for March 4th at 5 p.m. is free program. Project Snowstorm is scheduled for April 6th at 7 p.m., another free program. Nature Story Time occurs the first Monday of every month at the West Bend Library. I'm sorry, I got the time wrong here. You have to look that one up. I wrote 10 to 18. That's not right. Luminary Walk, which was part of the winter warm-up, went very well and was well attended. We have an indoor beehive coming in April. It's going to be a study area. Kids can come in and it's an interactive deal. They can see how the bees are working within the hive. We discussed making sure we've got signage outside. It's inside and outside, so just making sure people are aware that there may be bee activity in that specific area. A couple of departures to announce. Cindy Lines is retiring on February 18th. She's done a lot of our work on the Riverwalk. We're going to miss her. She is retiring, so thank you for your service, Cindy. Nick Lemke, our recreation supervisor, is moving to Swamico, so he has submitted his resignation. Good luck to Nick. We revised policy 82 and 8300. We set our summer program fees, and now I'm going to lead you a list of awesome donations that we received once again. This community continues to amaze me with their generosity. West Bend Community Foundation, Greater Milwaukee Foundation, Doug and Sharon Ziegler, $38,000 for the Regner Beach House renovation. West Bend Community Foundation, Greater Milwaukee Foundation, Clifford A. and Elizabeth M. Nelson Fund, $20,500 for the Regner Beach House renovation. West Bend Community Foundation, Johnson Family Fund, $12,500. T-Mobile Hometown Grant, $50,000 for the beach house renovation. Regner Beach House renovation donations, Paul Nelson, $300. Boys and Girls Club Washington County, $1,000. Hanson and Company Real Estate, $1,000. Traffic Analysis and Design, $1,000. Frank Carr, $1,000. Serigraph Inc., $1,000. Andy Gondring, $1,000. Patricia Strakoda, $2,000. Kettlebrook Church, $5,000. Jason Wealth Advisors, LLC, $1,250. Kirk and Sharon Emmerich, $1,000. Mr. and Mrs. Kenneth Collins, $1,000. Margie and Richard Klum, $1,000. Joseph and Mary Zaremba, $500. Spotlight Productions Community Theater Incorporated, $1,250, which went to Library Rec Center lower level build out. And West Bend Disc Golf Club, $150 towards the Riverside Disc Golf Course. Our next meeting is, again, I forgot to write down the date. It's in March. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you beat Brett tonight with the most detailed report.
Impressive list
Good
of
job.
donations, I will say that. It
I agree.
amazes me.
Awesome. Any questions for Alderman Kaler? Then we're going to go into 21. It's our last closed session item. Entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to state statute section 19.85, para 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data for any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility for our administrator's review.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote?
Nope. We got another hour.
Alderman Bushlick. Aye. Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Berquist.
Aye.
Alderman Kaler. Aye. Alderman Dolnick.
Aye.
Alderman Aaron's.
Aye.
Alderman Model.
Aye.
We're in closed session.
Thank you. So we'll be adjourning from closed session. So I'll open up if there's any announcements for the good of the order. I'll just say, as a Kiwanian that was mentioned earlier, we have our annual chili cook-off that's going on this coming Saturday from 11 to 2 at Silverbrook. We have 28 different restaurants that are participating, all local, great food, dessert. Bring your kids. It'll be a great, good old time. Anything else? And we'll adjourn to closed session. Thanks.